All right, we're doing chapter 6, section 6. This is the last section before your test. Just a reminder, your test is on Tuesday the 19th. So please study. I feel like the last 3 lessons are definitely easier than the first 3, but you guys will be getting your quiz back on Friday. Inequalities in 2 triangles. You have the hinge theorem. Okay, what this is if 2 sides of one triangle are congruent to 2 sides of another triangle, and the included angle of the first is larger than the included angle of the second, then the third side of the first triangle is longer than the third side of the second triangle. I know that sounds like a lot of words, but let me explain what this means. First thing you have to determine is, are they giving me 2 sides that are congruent? So if I'm looking at these 2 triangles, yes, they are. AB is congruent with DE, AC is congruent with DF. Then I'm going to look at my angles. Most of the time you will be given angle measurements. So just giving you an example. If my angle measurement for this one, let's say was 30, let's just give it 30 degrees, and then the angle measurement for this one is 20 degrees, I'm able to determine that which of my opposite sides are going to be larger. So if the measure of angle A is greater than the measure of angle D, then I can conclude that side BC is greater than side EF. The next one is going to be converse of hinge theorem. So instead of going from angles to sides, I'm then going to go from sides to angles. Converse of hinge theorem. If 2 sides of one triangle are congruent to 2 sides of another triangle, and the third side of the first is longer than the third side of the second, then the included angle of the first is larger than the included angle of the second. So again, first thing I'm going to look for is my congruent sides, and then I'm going to look at the third side. So again, let's say this third side is 30, and this one is not 30 degrees, just 30 units, and this one's 20 units. I can then determine which angle is going to be larger. So if GH is greater than KL, I can then say the measure of angle J is going to be greater than the measure of angle M. All right, looking at example number 1, it says, given D is the midpoint of AC, angle 1 is less than angle 2, what can you deduce? So what can you determine? So when I'm looking at this, first thing I know is that angle A is less than angle 1 is less than angle 2. So I'm just going to go ahead and give those angles a measurement just so I can use that. So I'm going to say angle 1 is 80 degrees, and angle 2 is going to be 100 degrees. And then looking at it, let's go ahead and find what we can. So I'm going to go ahead and, like I did before, I'm just going to label them inside. So angle 2 was 100, and angle 1 was 80 degrees. Looking at it, I'm going to go ahead and figure out, I need to first find 2 congruent sides. So my 2 congruent sides, I know that these are congruent right here because it's bisecting. My midpoint is separating those 2 segments together. And then I have my reflexive side. So now I need to be able to determine which sides of my triangle is going to be greater or less than. So here is 2 right here, and here is 1. Looking at it, so looking at my opposite sides. Which side is bigger? Good, so this is my bigger side. And this is my smaller side. So I then can conclude that AB is greater than BC. So what theorem would I be using for this? Yeah. This is my hinge theorem. Just so you get used to the theorems. All right, looking at example number 2, it says complete with less than, greater than, or equal to angle 1 blank to angle 2. So again, first thing I'm going to determine, where are my congruent sides? They are giving me my side measures. Look at it as 2 triangles. This is 1 triangle. This is 2 triangles. So looking at my 2 triangles, I know that this side is congruent to this side, and my reflexive side is going to equal the same measure. So given the sides, I have 4 and I have 3. I'm looking at the opposite angles. Which angle is larger? Which angle is smaller? So for this one, I'm using the converse hinge theorem. And what would my answer for this be? Angle 1 is blank to angle 2. Yes. Good. Angle 1 is going to be greater than angle 2. So how do I know? Side 4 is greater than side 3. So angle 1 is greater than angle 2. All right, looking at the last example, it says find the range of values for k. So that means I have to have a range of numbers. So if I'm looking at this, again, I need to determine my sides that are congruent. They're giving me LP and LM. And then I know my reflexive side is going to be the same for both triangles. Looking at the side measures, I have 18, I have 19. That's going to help me determine which angle is greater. Which angle is greater? Is it 5k minus 12 or 38? Which one's greater? Yeah. 38. So I'm going to go ahead and solve for k. How am I solving for k? I'm going to have 5k minus 12 is less than 38. And I'm going to go ahead and solve for k. We should know how to solve for inequalities. You're still solving it as if it was an equal sign. The only time you flip this sign is when you're multiplying or dividing by a negative number. So k can be less than 10. K can be greater than what? That's what I have to determine next. I cannot have a negative number, nor can I have 0. So when I'm looking at this, I know k has to be greater than 0, but it has to be less than 38. So that's my range. So I solved for my k greater than 38. Now I have to solve, I'm sorry, not my k, my angle. Okay, this is going to be my angle. Now I have to solve for my angle being greater than 0. So solving this, I'm going to have, still dealing with 5k minus 12 is greater than 0, and this is what I'm going to solve for. So going ahead and doing the same thing as before, solving for k. 5k is greater than 12. And I'm going to keep it as a fraction. K can be greater than 12 over 5. So my answer would be k is going to be greater than 12 over 5. But k has to be less than 10, and this is what my answer would be. That is my range. Any questions? All right, you guys have a review for homework. That is on Canvas, but right now go ahead and work on your classwork and submit it at the end of class, please.